Is right, make my body shake all night, rocking out to the morning light. I give you all my time, no lie.
Go ahead and call me a coward, say that I'm not strong because I'm not like you. Go ahead and call me crazy cause I live in a maze, tell me how about you? I think I live in my head, sometimes I think that I'm dead, I hide behind my youth. No, I've been losing my mind and I'm a little behind, step aside my shoes. Cause I never been happy with myself and I don't need no one feeling bad for me. Trying to offer me pity and throw jabs at me. Wanna give me advice and then laugh at me behind closed doors. Just close the door and let me be by myself, just me and myself. I'm tired of living, I cry, I hear it's easy to die, I wanna see for myself. And I know that sounds crazy to everyone else, but I'm depressed as fuck, stressed as fuck. Ain't no medicine that can cure what's intense as drugs. I need extra love and that ain't even enough. Today ain't even enough, and where the fuck is God? Damn, maybe I ain't believing enough, but today we gonna see if he's real. And if he is, then I guess I'm probably going to hell. Look, I ain't wanna die like this, I ain't picture my life like this. They don't know what it's like this. Pretending I'm happy so I can smile like this and laugh like you. Sometimes I wonder if I ever act like you. Could I finally fit in and maybe relax like, ooh? Or would you feel lost without me? Cause honestly, I think the world is better off without me and my mind spinning. This is the line finish. Truth is I don't care how they feel about my feelings. I made up my mind. I'm going out like Robin Williams. I guess I'm not the ordinary people of John Legend. And I've been suicidal since the day I was 9. Shit. Okay, the day I was 9, I've been tired of being bullied, couldn't stay out the fire. Grandma told me I should take it one day at a time, and damn it, look at me now. Fuck. Pen running out. Shit. Damn. Look, just know it's a new day, but if you're reading this, then it's probably too late.
Just make sure you tell my family it's okay. I'm sorry, but it's too late. I'm sorry, so much waiting on me. I don't wanna live to see another day. I'm sorry, but I can't stay. I'm sorry, so much waiting on me. Just make sure you tell my family it's okay. I'm sorry, but it's too late. I'm sorry, so much waiting on me. I don't wanna live to see another day. I'm sorry, but I can't stay. I'm sorry, so much waiting on me.
What you wanted, I hope you finally happy. It's too late for you. Been going out of my mind. You don't know how many times that I done prayed for you. I hope you hear me, goddammit, cause I got so much shit that I wanna say to you. I used to shine, now I'm all in the dark. I remember I used to tell you to follow your heart, but goddammit, look at you now, it's all in your fault. How could you? Maybe it's my fault. I should've paid more attention to what you been doing. Maybe I should've been more of an influence. I can't believe that you're dead. I read your letter and all I could do is have mixed feelings about it. But I'll forever be attached to you. Damn. Part of me feels bad for you. A part of me feel like you weak and I'm mad at you. And I don't mean to be insensitive, but I don't understand how we couldn't prevent this shit. You took the easy way out. God damn it, you did. I mean, look what you did. I'm so fucking upset. How could you be so selfish? Nigga, how could you be so selfish? Now you're gone, you done left me so helpless. I wonder what God thinks. I hope you in God's place behaving yourself. Yo, what the fuck you gotta say for yourself? Look, I really feel lost without you. I hate the fact you think the world is better off without you. And my mind's spinning, this is the line finish. Truth is I don't care how you feel about my feelings, and I'd be lying to you if I told you I'm fine. Listen, I know that you can hear me, all I need is like 5 minutes. I just wanna reach inside the casket and pull you out. I'm sorry, this is something that we both couldn't figure out. I wish I could hear you now. Is your soul missing? I wonder if you could do it again, would you do it different? Tell me what death is like. Was it meant for you, Brody? Did the heavens support it? Are you fucking happy now? Did you get what you wanted? Isn't this what you wanted? I feel the temperature falling, and you've been suicidal back then, you were 9. Yeah, even back then you was 9. We was living on the edge, couldn't stay out the fire. Grandma told us we should take it one day at a time, and damn it, look at you now. Shit. But it's a new day, and if you can't hear me, then it's probably too late. Fuck!
Just make sure you tell my family it's okay. I'm sorry, but it's too late. I'm sorry, so much waiting on me. I don't wanna live to see another day. I'm sorry, but I can't stay. I'm sorry, so much waiting on me. Just make sure you tell my family it's okay. I'm sorry, but it's too late. I'm sorry, so much waiting on me. I don't wanna live to see another day. I'm sorry, but I can't stay. I'm sorry, so much waiting on me. Just make sure you tell my family it's okay. I'm sorry, but it's too late. I'm sorry, so much waiting on me. I don't wanna live to see another day. I'm sorry, but I can't stay. I'm sorry, so much waiting on me. Just make sure you tell my family it's okay. I'm sorry, but it's too late. I'm sorry, so much waiting on me. I don't wanna live to see another day. I'm sorry, but I can't stay. I'm sorry, so much waiting on me.
If the work ain't scaling up, get your measure straight. Once your foot on the gas, you cannot hesitate. I know you can't tell the prime that I'm in. All by grind, design, and timing. If the work ain't scaling up, get your measure straight. Once your foot on the gas, you cannot hesitate. I know you can't tell the prime that I'm in. All by grind, design, and timing.
Smack rappers like that URL clips. While you sitting at home watching URL clips, I'ma double back and Hofford like that URL clip. Bet these rappers get ruffled every second I smell chips. Get green like a Celtic. Volcanic how I hit the roof and I melt shit. Stunting no evil Knievel. Blood of a king. So every bar spiritually regal. Take y'all to church, no cathedral. Pen poison tip like a needle. Paint you a pic with no easel. Rappers quick to mislead you. On game try to G you. Not for the weak or the feeble. Stomping is concrete, so it's easy to get my seeds through.
Paving this shit, crank.
Fucking up bands, so y'all come up with a couple of grams. Fucking up bands, white tee, blue tee, all in my hands.
Who do we send?
All right, that's where we're in position.
Bravo team offloads here. Alpha team stays on board to land downrange. This is capture or kill.
Ya son más de 10 años metiéndole y todavía sueno como nuevo. Baby no tiene relevo, me sobra el dinero, el respeto y los huevos. Yo, cada movimiento que hago es luego otro nivel relevo. Tú sonaste, me pagaste y no
the containers!
How the hell did Iran get their hands on this?
It's either Russia or us.
Anywhere I
We need an army. Very good as an army.
Mexican Special Forces, 141, they are your brothers now!
Where I lay my head is home,
Weapons hard, vaqueros. Pre-order now and get early access to the open beta.
Brockton is proud to be the city of champions. With a rich sports history, Brockton is the hometown of boxing greats Rocky Marciano and marvelous Marvin Hagler. The city's athletic legacy continues with the success of Brockton High School sports teams. Known for athletic excellence and good sportsmanship, the BHS athletic program was selected as the #1 athletic program in Massachusetts by Sports Illustrated. The school's Brockton Boxers have been a longtime powerhouse in high school football. In fact, the BHS football program has been regarded as one of the most storied, successful, and dominant high school football programs of all time. The BHS boys soccer team recently won their first state championship in 2017, leading them to be ranked 7th on USA Today's list of top high school soccer teams across the country. These are just some of the many reasons why Brockton is the city of champions.
Sugar the Stage Play is coming to Tri-C Metro Campus September 17th for one show only, 7 p.m. Get your tickets now on Eventbrite.com. That's September 17th, one show only, Tri-C Metro Campus. Don't miss this mesmerizing play production. A cash team production. Tickets available on Eventbrite.com or call 216-394-8926. That's 216-394-8926. Cleveland, stand up.
The worst snowfall in its history. A raging blizzard that came in on winds of up to 100 miles an hour, bringing death and destruction to the whole region.
What we believe is happening, Carl, is that the president is likely to invoke the Stafford Act here. That's a procedure that was initially started back in the 1970s to deal with national disasters, and it unlocks funding from the federal government for FEMA to respond in localities that have been hardest hit. In this case, the possibility is that you're looking at a national declaration.
Ordered the U.S. Army to go in and do whatever it could to help. A report from Providence.
Centers on the state of emergency declared this morning in Buffalo. News Center's Mike Pegasus explains.
Troops from across Massachusetts were in places like this. They boarded about 24 buses, and then they left from near Springfield, Braintree, and here in Melrose.
Winds will increase to 50 miles per hour tonight and continue through Wednesday.
Hey there, General Red Review here with Old Colony Pest Control. If you're having pest problems in a commercial or residential setting, we're the people to call. Veteran-owned, based in Massachusetts and Rhode Island, Old Colony has been here servicing your homes proudly, and we plan to keep it up. Our team is fast, efficient, and reliable. We go above and beyond to cater each project's individual need. No task is too much for us, so give us a call. 774-400-5993. Again, the number is 774-400-5993. Hope to hear from you soon. General Red Review, out.
One day, Alex and Sam were mucking around on their phones.
Why don't we take a selfie? Yeah.
Then Sam had an idea.
I'll take a picture.
What if they sent a picture of Alex's willy to their friend Katie? You know, the kind that disappears in a few seconds. When Katie saw it, she thought it was very funny. So she screen grabbed the picture and sent it to her friends. And they sent it to theirs. And the next day at school...
Newsflash! The world sees Alex's willy.
Alex even got a message from a bully. He then got one from a man he didn't know. Sometimes children share things they shouldn't online, and the effects can be devastating. Help keep your child safe. Search Share Aware.
What up, everybody? Kevin Jackson here. If you feel the need and you want to get in touch with the hot topics from today's headlines, you got to check out The Booth with Keith, Sinister One Hayes. Tell him Kevin Jackson sent you.
It's caught in the crossfire.
Stay at the top of my gang, can't fuck with me. You know, when it comes to the game, we don't move the same. I'm who you wanna be. I go hard each and every day, never miss a beat. Not I mean, you gone. Regret the day you ever stepped to me. Better respect the queen. Oh no, it's me back up in this shit again. Thought you was coming, but you been hiding behind all them friends. You wanna play with me? You love shit, wanna play for free. Wanna pass, then get played for free. I'ma pass cause they already know that I'm good when I say I be. Never even know wanna play with me. Oh, it's lying in your face with the fakery. You wanna talk about the last, but don't play with me. I'm real, that's the shit you're trying to say to me. You trying to stay with me. I'ma call like I see it, then believe it, cause you're not who y'all claim to be. Recouping all my investments, I don't play for free. Said I was weak and I was stressed, but wanna lay with V. Please. How you gon' come for me? Stay at the top of my gang, can't fuck with me. You know, when it comes to the game, we don't move the same. I'm who you wanna be. I go hard each and every day, never miss a beat. Not I mean, you gone. Regret the day you ever stepped to me. Better respect the queen. Who knows? How you gon' come for me? Stay at the top of my game, can't fuck with me. You know, when it comes to the game, we don't move the same. I'm who you wanna be. I go hard each and every day, never miss a beat. Not I mean, you gone. Regret the day.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
This is blasphemy. This is madness. This is the Booth.
Alrighty, it's your boy Sinister One broadcasting live from the Cities of Champions. You are listening to The Booth and watching The Booth, and we are awaiting the arrival of Ken Diesel. I hope everything's okay. So right now I've got this set up as the one-man show, me and R Squared sitting here, and we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. This is going to be a special hour and a half, maybe 2 hour show. Because we're going to be breaking down the NFL tonight. Season begins Thursday. We are pretty friggin' ecstatic and excited about that. We've already got a lot of people in the chat. John Hayes, what's going on? My brother from another mother. How's it going? Dave Haggerty is in the chat watching. Guys, we got a good show coming on. And also, today's election day. Before we get into this, today's election day. I actually almost committed a crime, but I have a feeling that they would have been able to tell me, because I actually had got my mail-in ballot about 2 months ago, and I had already filled it out, and I already sent it in the secured envelope and sent it in, and guess what happened? Today is election day. Everybody's standing outside the polls, and I'm saying to myself, oh my God, I got to go vote. And I almost went to go vote, and I realized, wait a minute, I actually sent my ballot in. I already voted in the pre-vote. So I'm pretty sure, I don't know if you can answer this, R-squared, but if I had went to go vote, they would have already had me marked, because they actually haven't sent me anything that says that I voted by mail, because that doesn't come up until the votes are counted. Then I'll get that notification that it was there. So they would have had me marked as voted already at the polls, correct?
Well, that happens in a lot of places where you've got active vote by mail or early voting systems like we do in Florida, where the majority of people vote early or by mail. And so what they do is when you go to vote in person, they obviously check you, obviously to make sure you're registered and what have you. If you have already voted by mail, then the system will say that you've already voted by mail, and they tell you that. So at that point, either you can leave or you can vote in person, and they won't count your mail-in ballot. Because you might have changed your mind, or you might have said, well, I want to vote in person instead. You always have that right. And so what they do is they would then indicate that you're voting in person, and they won't count your mail-in ballot.
And John Hayes is in the chat. He says it's probably one of the most exciting elections that the Brockton community has seen in a long time. Yeah, Brockton and Massachusetts. We've got this big one here. Maura Healey is running for governor. As we know, people have stepped down, and she's running, and this is it. People headed into November. This is the big one. So we're going to talk about a lot of this stuff. He talks about Claire Cronin running for state rep. We've got a lot of people. We've also got that sticker ballot vote for Fred Fontaine going on. We've got a lot of stuff going on. But first of all, I got to thank my guest from last week, Angel Cosme of Mutual Aid Brockton. He was on last week. We talked about the community fridge that they're trying to get going here in the Brockton area. I'm pretty ecstatic and excited about the Brockton community fridge. I've been watching the community fridge on other states and cities and towns, and it's working out very well. And it provides for people who need it. But again, today is First Tuesday, and usually Ken Diesel's here with us, and I'm kind of worried because we're sitting here, off air. We have this joke about Ken always showing up late, and then we get worried when it's like 2-3 minutes to go. But then when Ken doesn't show up, then we worried either he got tied up in court or whatever. But we're hoping everything's okay. Hopefully with this rain or something, he's not stuck somewhere. We've been raining here for 3 days straight. As you guys saw, 95 was actually flooded this week, and both sides of Rhode Island Highway was insane. So before we get into the show, I got to mention my sponsors: Michael Douglas Barretto, MDB Electronics. If you need a controller fixed or repaired, reach out to him. Send it out back within 24 to 48 hours of gaming. Also, Vienna Marie's album, It's Personal, is available now. Streaming sites everywhere. I got to thank everybody who's been playing her music and sharing this album.
Ken's looking for the link.
Is that the message that just popped up into the... Oh, my. Guess what? He found the link. Hold on. Let's get him in here. I'm not even going to go to commercial. I'm just going to get Ken in here. Let's just do this here. Oh, man. Let's just get him in. I'm not even going to take a break. Sound check, Ken?
Yep, right here.
Ken has made it, people. We're very happy. And I'm pretty ecstatic. I actually just had a camera update, so it looks like I'm going to have to adjust some things on my camera. I'm looking pretty bright. I'm going to have to turn the brightness down or something. Work with that. But Ken's with us. Ken, thank you for coming on the show. 7 o'clock is the start.
Well, some of us have work to do. Aren't sitting around all day playing Xbox.
Oh, man.
Guitar Hero.
Oh. So before you came in, we were talking about the important election races that are going on. We were talking about my sponsors, Tactical Target Systems. If you guys want zombie targets, get in there, get at them. Don Robinson is my contact there. Also, thank you to everybody who supported the show with I Love Boston Sports shirts. And I have to apologize for those who have won shirts and I haven't been able to get down to the store and get them. But these are the people who won. John Hayes, who's in the chat. You're one of the winners. You're right there in the chat. John Hayes won a shirt. There's a couple other people in there. There's another person up in there that won a shirt. He's actually in the hospital right now. We want to give our prayers and blessings out to Paul Forrest. He's in the hospital. He's not doing well at all. He's had a couple of emergency surgeries. And I'm pretty sure if he was on here, he would tell people, when you're told to take care of your health, you need to take care of it, or you end up in the situation that he's in right now. And our prayers go out to Mr. Paul Forrest, who is an avid listener and watcher of this show. We're here with you, and you've got our prayers and blessings, man. Also, Carl Bedell, veteran-owned residential and commercial, 774-400-5993. Old Colony Pest Control. And let's get into the news booth. Woman ejected from a slingshot during a police chase at Roger Williams Zoo. She didn't have her seatbelt on. There was a report of a vehicle playing their music too loud. The police showed up. The person who owns the car, Luis, I forget the person's last name, he took off in this slingshot. She flew out of there. She got injured and she was hurt, but he was arrested. And these slingshots are nothing to play with, people. I own one, so I can let you know. They're fast and they're nothing to don't be taking these chances. Wear your seatbelt, people. Wear your seatbelt. CVS acquires Signify Home Health Care for $8 billion. The hypocrisy of this is that CVS was one of the big companies that was named in the opiate lawsuit that was paying out millions and millions and billions of dollars in damages to those families. And guess what happened? COVID hit, and then CVS made all types of profits off of COVID. And if you were a conspiracy theorist about this COVID thing and how convenient it was for all these pharmacies to make all this money off of COVID to help them pay for the hypocrisy of these opiate lawsuits, CVS has now acquired Signify Home Health Care for the cost of $8 billion. So CVS will be moving out of the pharmacy business. They will be moving into the home health care industry. And this is hypocrisy and elitist at its worst. I don't know if you guys want to chime in on that. It pisses me off. I'm real upset at this. Ken, anything?
Well, and this is a symptom of an ongoing problem of the consolidation and profitization of the healthcare industry. We talked about this before on this show. We talked about this in other forms of media. Rob's had some excellent quarter posts on it. I think it was last year. But, this is par for the course. When you profitize the healthcare industry and turn it into, this is going to happen. It's a little surprising people are getting excited about it. Wake up and smell the coffee, people. It's been going on for almost 40 years.
Yeah, I'm not excited at all. It's actually pissing me off. So we'll leave it at that. So anything you want to add to that, R-Squared?
No.
Okay. Moving on into the legal booth. I held some stories over for you guys from last week to break down. We are talking about the Mar-Lar-Go documents. And I actually started to talk a little bit about what I know, but these are the guys that really know what's going on. The DOJ is doing this investigation of top secret documents. Now, for those I spoke with last week on the show, I talked about the level of different top secret documents that the president is allowed to take a certain level of top secret documents that are above the normal top tier of secret documents and leave them wherever. The problem here is that some of these documents weren't of that status. They were, and you know what? I tried to explain it and talk about it, but I'm going to let my guys, I'm going to let Rob, because he wrote 2 great articles this week over at the Corridor. One of them is touching base on this and what those articles and items were and why people should be upset and why people should be worried and why people should ask the $1 million question, what was he planning to do with this documentation? And like I said before, and I don't want to play this game, but when you go back to when Donald Trump was withholding the funds to the Ukraine for getting weapons, you wonder what would have happened if he was allowed to do that and Putin was able to go into the Ukraine. Because that money was released and Trump wasn't allowed to do that, guess what? They've been able to hold off these guys for 6 months now. So one would wonder, what would have happened if Trump was able to stop that funding to Ukraine. And I'm going to let Rob get right into this because, like I said, he wrote 2 great pieces over at the Corridor on this first topic right here.
There are 2 main issues with the Mar-a-Lago investigation. One is the timeline, and the second is the legal piece. So, ironically, William Barr, Trump's own attorney general, who often, carried his water and covered for him during his time, in the administration, laid it out pretty darn well on Fox News the other day. And so based on what channel or channels that your listeners watch, you may have seen at least clips of that. But he laid out the time frame pretty well when he said that the Department of Justice really had no choice but to execute the search warrant the way that they did, because this has been going on for about a year and a half. When President Trump left the White House, which he did in January of 2021, we're now in September of 2022. They were getting the search warrant in July of 2022, so that's about a year and a half. And for the first few months, the National Archives was looking for the documents. The documents were missing. It's their job under statute and function that they collect all presidential records, all government records. They have a system by which they store them based on the classification, based on a whole lot of categories. They approached President Trump and his staff a few times. There were so-called negotiations. There were attempts to get the documents back the easy ways, like, hey, you seem to have these. You're supposed to leave them here. Please return them. No problem. And so they were lied to. They gave a few documents back and then hid the rest. And so after months and months of back and forth with the National Archives had no choice but to refer the matter to the Department of Justice. And remember, the goal is to get the documents back, not necessarily anything else. The Department of Justice had ongoing negotiations for a few months with Trump and his team. And again, there was, rampant dishonesty. We don't have anything. We did a search. There's nothing left. You have everything. And of course, we know from what was found that day that they still had a whole lot and that they had hidden it so that it couldn't be found, knowing that there was going to be some kind of effort to get the records back. And so, this wasn't like the Department of Justice immediately just went and got a search warrant to search Mar-a-Lago and seize these records. This went on for a year and a half before the search occurred, before the search warrant was executed. Mm-hmm. And so that time frame is really significant because everybody's talking about how unprecedented it is. Yes, as Bill Barr himself said, what's unprecedented here is that we've never before had a president that stole hundreds of documents, and including highly classified documents, and brought them to the president's home or country club. That's never happened before. That's what's unprecedented here. Everything else about it is normal in the normal course of business, as far as DOJ getting search authorization, executing search authorization. Everything else was normal. What was unprecedented was a president who stole hundreds of documents, including highly classified. Now, the issue about the highly classified is, of course, these are things that have a significant impact on our national security, on our national defense, and other things. These aren't just souvenirs. These aren't just his own, scribbles or anything like that. That wouldn't be an issue. These are official records of the government, of our national security structure, of our defense structure, and others. And the stuff that is considered top secret SCI, which is higher than top secret, that's special compartmentalized information. That means you could never look at it outside of a special protected facility. You never take it anywhere. So the fact that he took it in the first place is a serious violation. But what makes that so sensitive is, and we don't know because obviously it hasn't been declassified, we don't know what these documents are, but most of the time, documents at this level indicate our most sensitive intelligence assets, the names of our intelligence operatives, the way that they work, who they report to, where they live, all of this information that if it fell into enemy hands would be disaster for our intelligence community, for these lifelong career dedicated professionals who now are at risk of being arrested, tortured, killed, whatever would happen to them. It's not going to be something nice. And so that's why a lot of this stuff matters. And then you could talk about the importance of national defense issues. You could talk about how some of this was related to our nuclear weapons. You can imagine why that would be highly sensitive. So we're not talking about golf scores here. We're not talking about the White House menu or anything like that. We're talking about some very, very serious documents that no president has a right to possess outside of the White House, that no president has a right to take home. And until Donald Trump left office, no president had. And so the Department of Justice had absolutely no choice but to seek a search authorization, which they did from a properly appointed magistrate. They met the probable cause burden. Now that a lot of the documents have been released, even with redactions, you can see that they had ample information to support their belief that certain statutes were violated, that the records would be found in various places at Mar-a-Lago, and the urgency by which they would have to retrieve them. And the magistrate did the right job after a review and signed off on the authorization, and the FBI agents executed the warrant in true professional status. They went in without the FBI windbreakers to respect the president's privacy. They went in coordination with the Secret Service so that it was not done in any kind of hostile way. They did it easily, quietly, out of sight of people, and to do everything. The only reason that this was public at all was because President Trump made it.
That's right. He went on. Yeah, he went on True
Otherwise,
Social.
nobody would know.
That's
Nobody
right.
would even know. And so, you've got serious violation of national security law. You have serious threat to our national security and national defense from the disclosure of these documents to our adversaries. And you have 18 months of attempted negotiation to get them back the easy way before having to do that. So there was no choice but to do this. And it was done extremely professionally and properly. All I's dotted, all T's crossed, everybody acting appropriately on behalf of the FBI and the Department of Justice.
Ken?
First of all, once again, Rob has hit the nail square on the head. The summary is excellent. There's also another thing we need to look at, and that's something called the Presidential Records Act. This came out after President Nixon, and President Nixon made the argument that the documents that he created in the White House were his personal property. There was some confusion about, well, what documents are personal, what documents are public. And what the Presidential Records Act said is anything produced when the president is in office, from the president's daily briefing, which is the daily intelligence group, down to his golf scores, are the property of the United States. There is no discussion about this. Even if the documents weren't classified, I'm going to leave that aside for a second. So Rob hit the nail on the head with that one. But those documents don't belong to him. They are the property of the United States. Sister One, this would be the equivalent of you, when you work for the MBTA, taking one of the buses home for your own personal enjoyment. Even though you worked on it, it's not your goddamn bus. If you tried to do that, you'd be arrested. Okay? I don't care if you worked on the bus. I don't care if they built the bus was on your ship. It's not your bus. These documents aren't his. And here's the other thing, as like Rob pointed out, they asked for the documents back. They said, Mother, may I? Okay?
18 months.
Okay. Now, people don't remember, but there were a number of people in the Clinton administration who were arrested, convicted, and did time because they took classified documents from the National Archives, kept them for too long, and didn't bring them back in time. Okay? And the Republicans went to war about this. And these were a couple of documents that these people were using to write their memoirs. And they were clearly wrong. I think their penalties were a little too harsh, but we can discussion for another day. But I think that's the thing that people don't understand, that these documents aren't his property. This is stolen property. Now, getting back to your second question is, we all believe that Trump is either an asset of Russian intelligence or a useful idiot. And we've gone into great detail about the difference between an asset and useful idiot. He has already shown a propensity to show classified information to foreign powers. There is no reason to believe he wasn't doing that now, either because he wanted to impress his friends, or he is an asset, or they were looking for something. So this is, not good. I agree it's unprecedented, but we've never had a useful idiot or a foreign asset in the White House before. And God willing, we'll never have it again.
Yeah, certainly not at this level. And that was the issue. One of the things we found in the newly released information was that 42 of the documents they found were empty folders. Now, you wouldn't have empty folders. You don't take empty folders. These are folders with the top secret SCI classification. And so the issue is what was in them and what happened to those documents. Are those the things that he may have provided to our adversaries or whoever he was dealing with? And, it doesn't matter whether he did it for nothing, doesn't matter whether he did it for money, doesn't matter whether he did it for any purpose. The act of transferring them, of sharing that information with them is a serious felony. Doesn't matter why. People want to know why. That's human nature. It would be nice to know why. It'd be nice to know how bad the damage was and what he did with it and why he did it. But the very fact that he shared that is a significant violation and can lead to, jeopardy like we've never seen a former president face before. And one other thing, Ken brought up the presidential records. That's true, by the way, of all government records, of all government employees. I spent 24 years on active duty. Every email I sent or received belonged to the government, not me. And so if the email was sent or received on my military email account, it was preserved on the server, even if it was a personal note. You're not supposed to use it for personal. Nobody really cares if you send a couple of short emails. It's not going to bust the system or anything like that. But that became part of the permanent record, even if I was sending a note, something personal. So you're not supposed to, you just have to know that it's all going to be saved that way. If I had sent an email from home on my personal email to somebody else on their personal email, but it was a work issue, then we were supposed to then transfer that email to our work email and make a record of it. And that's where you have problems with these government records. And this is what Trump and Jared Kushner and others were doing. They were using private email accounts, Snapchat, and other social media accounts to have official communications that they were trying to, conceal from the Government Records Act. And we know that Kushner talked to Saudi Arabia all the time via Snapchat. We know that Trump was using his personal cell phone and other personal communications with foreign leaders. And he was doing so with the intention of making sure that there would be no record of those communications. It doesn't mean every one of those communications was nefarious in some way, but you'd have to believe that if he was trying to conceal the very existence and substance of those communications, there was probably something he was trying to hide. And he got away with it for all 4 years. So that's just another issue that's related to this. I don't know if anybody's looking at that as part of this investigation or not. And I don't like to speculate, but I do think that there's a firm basis to believe that that would be part of it, because it's very consistent with having improper communications, whether you're sharing information or not.
Anything to add, Ken?
No, I totally agree. Other than the fact that it's very interesting when I deal with government agencies, and I do it all the time. It's at the bottom, almost all the emails. There's a warning about how this is an official communication. You're not using it for personal purposes, and it will be preserved. So, just an interesting note. I don't know if Rob had that in his when the Jaguar they get that warning.
Oh yeah, we know.
Excuse me. Moving on to the next story, and I'm going to ask you guys to break this down. A lot of people are calling this a big win. I don't think it's that big of a win as people realize. But there is a judge who granted Trump's legal team a request for a special master to oversee these reviews of the seized documents. Now, they've halted reviews of these documents at this time until this special master can come into play and oversee. So I'm going to let Ken kind of describe what's going on here, because some people are trying to make this out as this is some humongous win for Trump. I don't think it is, and I think if this special master comes in and finds that Trump was in the wrong, it's going to be like every other legal person that they brought in that's been like, dude, you're in the wrong. I'm backing out of this. Because we saw this quite a bit with lawyers that they brought in with this whole election was fixed. You know, there were guys who were like, yeah, I'm not risking my bar to lie for you. Sorry, buddy, you don't have a win here. And you pointed that out, Ken, many times when lawyers had stepped down from his case. You said, hey, there comes a time where the notoriety and this and the celebrityism is not worth your bar. You say, sorry, so I'll let you get into this one here.
Certainly. What a special master is, it's an agent of the court that is assigned to do a specific task. They're basically, think of them as a pinch hitter or a relief pitcher or a third down back. They're brought in for a very specific task. In this particular
Is it kind of like an arbitrator? Is it almost like an arbitrator?
No, not an arbitrator. No, this is a special agent of the court, basically to look at a particular question of law and to give the judge advice. They don't make any rulings. What the special master does is recommend to the judge what they should do. So the judge doesn't have to do it himself or herself and spend a lot of time on a mundane task. Trump is claiming the documents seized were not subject to the Presidential Records Act, were not top secret, whatever. So what the special master will do is review them and give a report. Yes, it's a little surprising. I don't think he should be given that privilege. However, I think you gave the answer I'm going to give previously. No, what's going to happen is the special master is going to review and say Trump's full of stuffing and we're going to continue. Did Trump get a success in delaying the inevitable? Yes, no question about it. Was this the right call to make? I don't think so, but then again, it wasn't my call. You could make the argument is this judge is trying to make sure that he has what we call appeal proofing, meaning he's not leaving Trump any room for an appeal. And just like, look, I know he's going to lose, but fine, we'll give it to you. We'll give you enough rope to hang yourself. And as you pointed out, when all those fraudulent and frivolous election law claims, no one wanted to touch it after they found out he didn't have a case. And this could be the same thing. So, yes, a tactical victory, a strategic mistake.
Rob Squid, I don't know if you were listening to what the topic is right now.
Yep.
If you want to add on to that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Ken's conclusion, spot on. It's probably nothing more than a delay, and there's not an ultimate victory here. If anything, the more room you give Donald Trump, the more he hangs himself with it, because, he tends to say things that are counter to his own cause. So, we'll see. I think there are a couple of things that are interesting about this. In all likelihood, the judge exceeded her authority in this ruling. There are some aspects of the ruling that I've seen some comments by some legal experts that the judge most likely lacked the authority to give. That doesn't mean that the Department of Justice is going to appeal it, because at the end of the day, it may not change a lot of things. But it means this is a very junior judge, a fairly new, inexperienced judge. And if you may remember that the Trump legal team was fishing around looking for someone they thought might be more receptive to them down here in Florida, and so they passed on a few more experienced judges, and they went to one of his last appointees there. And so it's interesting, because this is why judges have to learn and grow like everybody else. They may be excellent attorneys to get nominated to be a judge or not, as the case sometimes is, but when they're new to the bench, they have a lot to learn. So this could just be that the judge, made some tactical mistakes, some legal mistakes, and that type of thing. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to change the ultimate outcome, just the timing of it. It's interesting because the issue was usually when you have a special master like this, it's to explore whether something is protected by attorney-client privilege, because obviously the other side is not supposed to see anything like that. The Department of Justice had already concluded that. They had identified a few documents that were likely attorney-client privilege. They had put those aside to be returned to the archives where they weren't going to use them. So they were respecting that already. So now the special master may reach the same conclusion, and there may be significant overlap on which documents were protected by attorney-client privilege between the Department of Justice filter team and the special master appointed by the court. Both sides have until Friday to submit names, usually former judges who have experience in this regard. So the special master may wind up having more experience than the actual judge who gave the ruling in this particular issue. So it could be interesting. It could be interesting. And I think that we'll see. I referred to former Attorney General Barr's comments a few moments ago. He condemned this approach by the Trump team. He thought this was dumb to ask for the special master, especially the timing of it and everything else. He said it was a delay tactic. And I think, Ken said that, and that's pretty much all it is.
Yeah, because, you see a lot of people out there, they're claiming this is this humongous victory, all the Trumpers and stuff. No. And I'm like, it's not that big of a deal, people. It's nothing, and everything's going to still probably continue to progress. It's just something to delay and buy time. And we talked about this. We've talked about this off air, the Truth Social app, where we talked about if Ken was President Trump's defense attorney, how many times Ken would be pulling his hair out, because this is a guy who, like we said, we wouldn't have known anything about the FBI or DOJ being at Mar-Lar-Go because he put it on Truth Social before anybody knew. He's the one that blew the whole story open, like R Squared said. The issue here is like we talked about before. You're supposed to keep your mouth shut, yet this guy goes on Truth Social and he just incriminates himself with everything. He incriminated himself after the DOJ had posted pictures of the items that they found. And then he goes on Truth Social. He says, well, they're the ones that put it out there all messy like that. They actually took it from here. And then it was like, oh my God, you just incriminated yourself because supposedly they weren't in your possession. You didn't know where they were. And here he is saying on Truth Social that the stuff was in crates and boxes. And I'm saying Ken must have been like, oh my God, stop.
If I may draw an analogy, I actually had a client one time, swear to God. He and a group of friends broke into a house, stole a bunch of swag, then went and had a party. They videotaped both the breaking in, the grabbing the swag, and the party, and then put it on Facebook. I swear to God. When I asked him why he did that, he said, well, I made the discussion group private, so the cops can't look at my Facebook and access that. Yeah.
Takes all kinds. One thing I would add, because when we're having this discussion about Trump's behavior, with making decisions that we may say are against his legal interests, this is not being done recklessly, by the way. This is being done very deliberately and intentionally by he and his closest advisors. Because remember, his whole thing is politics by grievance and to sow mistrust in institutions. He knows that he's dead to rights legally and factually on this thing. He knows he took the documents. There's no way around it. And he knows he was caught with them. And he knows what he's done with them. We still have to figure that out, and we can speculate. There's some evidence about it, but we don't yet know, but he does. And he certainly knows what he was going to do. And so his whole reason for acting this way is because he's benefiting from it politically. He's raising hundreds of millions of dollars from this, which, by the way, he's using personally, right? He keeps that money. All of the people, and I don't know if anybody listening, sends money to these various, causes the RNC and the Trump people put out every time he gets himself in trouble. And you think that you're contributing to his legal defense, the legal defense of other people. You're not. He keeps this money. It goes in his personal bank account at some point. So stop giving it to him. But anyway, unless that's what you want to do with your money, that's your business. But the point is that this is all fueling his politics by grievance approach. And it certainly works with the MAGA crowd. It's not going to work with, mainstream thinking people who are paying attention to this, see the danger, see his actions, and the grievance isn't going to matter because he was caught dead to rights legally and factually on this thing. But for his purposes, his political purposes, this is what he wants. And so it's not as reckless as it may sound.
So this is a strategy thing. Okay.
Well, here's the problem with that. This is like the guy who jumps off the Empire State Building on 32 floors, looks down and goes, so far, so good. I agree with the first part of what Rob said. Yes, it's politics by grievance. But if you look at the effects he's having, we're starting to see things turn. Sarah Palin was defeated in Alaska. They flipped this seat in the same state that's been held by 42 years by Republican. A number of Republicans are now openly endorsing their Democratic candidates.
It's coming up in the Biden bombshells. We're talking about this.
If you're looking at the poll numbers 6 months ago, it was a guarantee the Republicans were going to take the Senate and take the House by huge numbers. People were talking about a Senate majority with as many as 70 seats. Okay, so they'd have a filibuster-proof majority. Now they're saying Republicans are going to take the Senate, but it's not going to be by very much, and they're probably not going to take back the House. In fact, Democrats are going to have right now the poll numbers I'm reading almost add 20 net seats, and now we're talking about September. What's this going to look like in 2 months after even more of this stuff? So I think Trump is playing to his base, which is, I guess, good for him. But in the end, he's destroying everything else. Because the MAGA base was never that big. It was loud, it was obnoxious, it was the tail wagging the dog. And now that tail is no longer can wag because someone's got a hold of it and started to twist it hard.
And we're gonna talk about some of the things you just mentioned. I'm gonna save it because they're coming up in the Biden bombshells segment. We're gonna talk about all of these things since today is election day. But we're gonna move on here. Continue on in the legal booth. BLM executive accused of siphoning $10 million from BLM donors. This was why, I'm going to just say this right now, I didn't jump on the BLM bandwagon. I saw red flags right from the get-go. This isn't the first BLM executive. This is like the 8th or 9th executive who didn't do what they were supposed to with the money. And this is a guy who they had legit people, but what he did was he bullied them from that organization. He bullied them out, so he gained control of the money. And then he was able to siphon away that money from donors. I'm going to ask you guys, because there's a difference here in the legal terminology between embezzling. What's the difference between embezzling the funds from the organization to siphoning? He's being charged with siphoning from the donors. So can you guys explain the difference between siphoning and embezzling?
Okay, you're getting into a very, very hyper-technical field. So let me try to explain what the accusation is. First of all, there is a group called Black Lives Matter. And then there's the Black Lives Matter, what I call the movement. There's this very small group that basically coined the phrase. And now the Black Lives Matter movement is a term that the radical right is using to deal with a cornucopia of organizations who are not involved in this. And I include the NAACP, the Legal Education Defense Fund, a lot. So embezzlement is when you have the legal authority over money and you take it out for personal gain. Siphoning means you have legal authority over that money in a public charity, it's very important, and you use it for purposes that are not in line with the charity's goals and functions under its board of directors, under its bylaws. So this is where it gets hyper-technical. I'll give you an example. Let's say they took the Black Lives Matter and they decided to finance a number of scholarships. Okay. Now, on the surface, that doesn't sound anything horrible. But unless the organization was specifically in its bylaws saying, one of the things we're going to do is sponsor scholarships, that's a misappropriation of funds. Doesn't mean anyone profited, it means a misappropriation of funds. Public charities are strictly controlled about what they can and cannot do with their money, and they must account for it. Even if they're using it for a charitable purpose, if it's not a purpose designed in their bylaws and their constitution, it is misappropriation. And that's the difference.
And I've had that argument with people in youth sports being on the board. We've had this discussion, which is why I don't do youth sports no more, because I was so upset at people who don't know the legal aspect of how to run a youth sports organization, nonprofit. You just, the money that comes in, you just can't take and do whatever. You have to have places where that money goes. You have to account for money going to buying helmets or certifying. It's a whole thing. And like I said, you know, we in the Black community, sometimes we're our own worst enemies when we rob from ourselves. You know, this is why, you know, the BLM name will become a joke, because we've had this. We had 10 NBA players during COVID who robbed inner city people with fake medical insurance. They took the PPE money and came up with this fake medical insurance, and then they stole from their own kind. It's just sad. Anything you want to add to that, Rob, on this case?
No, that was a great discussion. Any law school professor would be proud to have Ken come and give that to their class on theft crimes. The end of the day, what people need to know is these are different forms of theft.
And I knew that because when I saw the word siphoning, I'm like, there's a difference here. There's a difference between embezzlement and then siphoning, and I wanted to get that clarification for people.
And if I may, siphoning is not a legal term. The legal term is misappropriation. Siphoning is what the media says, but the legal term is misappropriation.
Gotcha. Okay, so misappropriation.
I'm going really into the weeds on this, and I apologize. And only someone like a super geek like me and Rob will bother about.
Trust me, being at the MBTA and doing payroll and doing project oversight, I know all about misappropriation of funds. When you have a bus that has a project and the money comes from a certain company, and you have a code to put into payroll for them to pay for that overtime, so you don't get put in jail for misappropriation. Trust me, I know all about that legal term, and that's something people don't know about. A New York police officer was sentenced for a record 10 years. He is now the highest sentenced person in the January 6th insurrection. This gentleman is one of the police officers who took his time. He was retired, but he took his time and went down to January 6th. He cried in court. He cried to the victim and said he got caught up in the moment and blah, blah, blah. And that's why he beat this police officer, this Capitol police officer, up with a flagpole and blah, blah, blah. And you know what the judge said to him? I don't care that you got caught up in the moment. I don't care. You were a police officer. You know what you're supposed to do and not what you're supposed to. And he got 10 years. And I see I squared. I'm like, you're smiling because this is what you wanted. You want people.
Yeah, look, remember, they started off with the easy cases and they're working their way up through the more serious cases. And so some of these ones that we see going to trial are the more serious cases, and there will be more serious sentences. So yeah, 10 years is the most anybody's gotten so far. There will be cases that are far higher than that. When they get to some of these militia leaders who planned and organized, a lot of this, they're responsible not only for their own conduct, but for a lot more that happened that day. So 10 years, you ain't seen nothing yet.
And you wanted this. You wanted these judges. When it came time, you said you want to see judges to be just like this.
I thought for the simple cases, they started off okay. And this is what you wanted to see, a progression in sentences along with a progression in the seriousness of the crimes. And if you ask me, and I made this argument as a prosecutor so many times, if you had someone in law enforcement or someone in the military or someone in a position of public trust who violated the law, especially in regards to their public trust, if there's a connection between it, you would argue that aggravates what they did wrong, that aggravates the matter, that you're punished for what you did, but when you have a range to consider, this pushes it to the more serious end of the range. Because as a police officer, like you said, Sinister One, as a police officer, he knew. And it doesn't matter what he got caught up in politically, because at all given moments, you don't get to attack people with the flagpole and stab them with it. And you don't get to spray people, and you don't get to stomp on people, and you don't get to slam people indoors, and all the things that they did. That's not getting caught up in the moment. Going to the Capitol that day is getting caught up in the moment. Getting caught up in this whole idea about the election being stolen, despite no evidence of that, ridiculous claim, that's getting caught up in the moment. Committing violence against law enforcement who were doing their job that day, that's not getting caught up in the moment. That's pure criminality, 100% criminality. And being a police officer, and obviously there were folks there that were current or former or reserve military members. Wait do you see their sentences? Because if I had anything to do with it, they'd be double.
And people's pensions being lost. The military is talking about taking away people's pensions if they're retired, if they're sentenced. They're talking about taking pensions away. And I'm like, damn, that's serious. Because here you are, you're thinking, oh, I'm retired. They can't touch my pension. Nope.
Yes, they can.
Ken, anything you want to add to this one?
Just very quickly, I'd like to point out, Rob won't toot his own horn, so I'll toot it for him. He called this. A year ago, we were talking about that. He said exactly this. They're going to start off with the slow cases, get them on their belt, and work their way up the food chain. He said, be patient. It's going to take a while. They're going to come more severe sentences. And I totally agree with the fact that he was a peace officer. If anybody knows what you can and cannot do, it would be him. And I'm sorry, I have no sympathy for this guy. I've been a criminal defense attorney for almost 30 years, okay? I have made numerous arguments for mitigation during sentencing, during plea hearings. One of the things I stay away from, and I advise all of the lawyers that I train, never, ever, ever use the words, I just got caught up in the moment. I didn't know what I was doing. It got away. No, that will piss off a judge faster than anything in the world. You say, look, judge, I screwed up. I knew it was wrong and I did it anyway. And I had a momentary lapse in judgment. Well, say that. Say I had a momentary lapse in judgment. Okay, that's fine. I knew it was wrong. I am sorry. I am telling you right now, this is the first, last, and only time you will see me because I've seen the light. We call it within the defense bar the come to Jesus moment. Okay. But you say, oh, I got no. You want to watch a criminal defense attorney like myself pull out my hair? Do what Trump did. Go on the Truth Media app and say, doing what he did, and go to a court saying, "Oh, I was caught up in the moment. I didn't know what I was doing. I was so high, I was unaware." That will make a criminal defense attorney pull their hair out.
Yeah, like I said, 10 years, and they're coming. They're coming, and this, like I said, they had the judge and what he said, and he wasn't happy at all. He didn't care. 10 years, and that's where we're headed. In the entertainment booth, Broadway's brand new $47 million James Earl Theater opens on September 12th. James Earl Jones is a legendary actor. He broke a lot of racial barriers, and this Broadway theater that's going to open up on September 12th, $47 million. It's going to be an honor to see this open and see people play. Here's a big difference for people. Michael Jackson's Thriller now receives Diamond certification, which means it is sold $33 million in streams and sales. This is new because we now have streaming, and you have TikTok, you have Facebook, you have Instagram, where you have all these young kids who are being exposed to all this older music. And because they're being exposed to this older music, they don't realize it's old. They think it's the new hip thing to listen to. And then they go and they start streaming this music like crazy. So you're seeing people like Michael Jackson. You're seeing people like Motley Crue. All these people are getting all this money now into their estates. Prince, for music that was kind of stagnant, but was timeless. And now you're seeing the streams and the sales of these songs. So it's crazy to see the music industry change. And I also believe that this is the reason why you're seeing a lot of bands like Rolling Stones and Motley Crue selling their libraries now to these companies for millions and billions of dollars, because it keeps the cash flow rolling in, and they can pretty much make this offer to these companies and say, hey, if this song pops, look, Fleetwood Mac had some kid on a skateboard use one of their songs on TikTok, and it blew Fleetwood Mac up with all types of streams and money revenue for their music, because people went and looked up Fleetwood Mac, and then they looked up their music, and then the sales were there. It's crazy. It's insane. Disney's D23, this was their promotion for everything that's coming up in the next few years. They unveiled Indiana Jones, Spider-Man, Star Wars, the Andor trailer, which I'm going to show at the end of the show tonight. I'm going to show the Andor trailer later tonight. But the surprise castings for Marvel X-Men is what it's rumored. Giancarlo Esposito would be Professor X. Denzel Washington would be Magneto. For those who don't know the history of X-Men comic books, Stan Lee had an inspiration for the Mutant War. And Professor Xavier was Martin Luther King, while Magneto was considered Malcolm X. And the Marvel Universe going with casting black men is bringing Stan Lee's vision to life into the big screen. So anybody out there who's complaining about the fact that they're now casting two black men to play these great characters, this is the original dream of Stan Lee. So I'm going to play that clip later on in the show. Brendan Fraser's The Whale gets a standing ovation, 6-minute standing ovation. They're talking about Oscar nods for Brendan Fraser. Here's the thing, people, with Brendan Fraser. He's been hiding out on Doom Patrol on HBO, playing Metallo, and he's been doing great. So to see this, I can't wait to see what's going to happen with him. Chadwck Boseman wins Posthumous Emmy Award for his voiceovers in Marvel's What If. And in the sports booth, Serena Williams, 23 titles. She's been playing since she was 14. She's retiring and stepping away from the game. She had her last match at the U.S. Open. Everybody in the sports world is wishing her congratulations, and they're real ecstatic, and it's just a dominant run in the history of sports as far as tennis goes, because they really brought tennis to a whole different level. Byron Allen inks a deal with CBS to bring HBCU sports games to nationwide TV, which means Jackson State University games will be seen on TV. Plus, we'll also get those Battle of the Bands that you guys see from down south that should be on national TV. It's one of the biggest things that happens down south around Thanksgiving. And Soul Cap. I talked about Soul Cap swimming cap on this show about a year ago. You people pulled the race card and said the reason why Soul Cap didn't get approved for the Summer Olympics was because it was a black product. No, it wasn't. I told everybody the reason why. They didn't have proper testing. They didn't have the proper backing that they needed in order to be in the Olympics. They went through the same thing that Michael Phelps had to do. Guess what, people? They've now had the time. They've got their endorsements. And now they are going to have Soul Cap will be in the Olympics. So for all you people out there who pulled the race card on this story a year ago, this one's for you.
Sit down.
Sit down. Sit down. Now we're going to get into the Biden bombshells. Ken kind of touched base on some of this stuff, and we held off because I wanted to get into this, and I want to break this all down. Congressional seats. There's a lot of seats. There's a lot of things up for grabs this September, which is today, and November that's coming up. Mary Peltola defeated Sarah Palin in Alaska. She lost. Palin went right on the Trump bandwagon, complaining about the election being fixed. She was upset with this ranked voting system that they have, and I'm going to let these guys explain how she won with this ranked voting and how she was able to pick up votes from someone else who was running. But she beat her. She knocked her out of this crucial congressional seat. I'm going to let R Squared talk about this first, and I'm going to let Ken get into this, about this Alaska election.
So, two things about this. First, ranked choice voting, which I happen to be a proponent of. I think it needs to be researched carefully to see the best way to do it, but the concept of it, I think, makes sense. Because right now we have too many elections where somebody with 25, 30% of the vote wins because they get more than anybody else, because nobody else got more than that because there were 5, 6 candidates and nobody got 50%. So the idea of ranked choice voting is when you have a field like that with 5, 6, 7 or more candidates, when you pick a candidate, you get to then pick your second choice, your third choice, and what have you. And so after each round, let's say you have 5 candidates, the candidate with the lowest votes gets eliminated, and then the candidates who were the second choice of the people who voted for that person get the votes. And if somebody gets over 50%, it's done. If there's still nobody that gets over 50%, they all get the votes from that person. Then they eliminate the next lowest, and then that person's second choice votes get added. So you do it until somebody actually wins with 50% of the vote or more, which is actually what it should take to win an election. You shouldn't be able to win an election with 25% of the vote. That means 3/4 of the people didn't want you. And so, so this is, instead of having multiple runoff elections, which takes time and money and nobody wants to pay attention, you can do ranked choice voting where you pay attention the first time. You indicate your first through 5th choice, or you could do as many as you want, 2 choices, 3 choices, it's up to you. But each time a candidate's eliminated, their votes get moved to the remaining candidates based on your own indication of voting. They've been doing it in Maine very successfully. And so, other states have tried it. Alaska just tried it. They all knew about it going in. There was no secret about it. The other thing about this is Sarah Palin. And yes, you could say she was impacted by some of the Trump stuff going on right now, but Sarah Palin is extremely unpopular in Alaska. Alaska is a unique state. It's very large. It's not very populous. There are a few population areas. They have very good memories as far as voters go there. And people remember that when she was, the governor, she was somewhat of an embarrassment when McCain picked her as a running mate. And her stature went way down in the state of Alaska. Not only that, after losing, she decided that she was going to step down as governor very, very shortly into her term. And so she left the state in a lurch, basically quit after being elected to go become some kind of faux celebrity. And that didn't last long for her. It didn't go well for her. She never really became a celebrity. She did the right-wing media for a while and kind of faded away. Her biggest claim to fame was being on The Masked Singer one time, I think. And, that was the only thing she's done in the last few years. And so when Congressman Young died and there was an open seat, she decided, oh, what the heck, I'll get back into politics. Well, you know what? The people of Alaska said, no, thank you. She was not the first choice for the Republicans. There was another Republican candidate that got more votes than she did. However, when that candidate didn't get enough votes, more of her supporters went to for their second choice went to the Democratic candidate and not Sarah Palin as a fellow Republican, because they didn't consider her, a real Republican. They didn't consider her loyal to the state. They had a good memory. They said, we don't want you back. We don't want you back in office. And so a lot of it was personal to Sarah Palin. If it had been another Republican, chances are that other Republican would have gotten the second place votes and would have won. This election was decided 51-49. And so, somebody other than Palin with the negatives probably would have gotten the 51%, the extra 2%, 2 to 3% needed. So that election is very much limited to the state of Alaska. I'm happy that it went this way. I couldn't envision someone like Sarah Palin being in Congress. What a joke that would have been. So I'm thrilled for that reason that it went this way. I don't read too much into it as far as the national trends go. I think there are some other races that are much more indicative of national trends and the mess we're going to have in November as far as predictability goes.
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on Georgia. I watched some of the debates from Georgia the other night, and Stacey Abrams did hold her own. It wasn't bad. Ken, anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, very simply, I agree with 90% of what Rob said, especially about ranked choice voting. The one thing I will disagree about this is I disagree with the fact that it was an outlier because of who Sarah Palin was. No, I agree. Alaskans have a very long memory, and she left the state in large. Totally true. What was most important is she was heavily backed by Trump, and she was the Trump candidate in Alaska. And I think that's the bell ringer of showing how much or how little the Republican Trump faction has in the general electorate. People were concerned that the Trump-backed candidates would get their base together, and then the rest of the Republicans would fall in line because they're better than a Democrat. No, I don't think so. I think this is a bellwether showing that even the Republicans are saying, whoa, crazy is crazy. And I hate those goddamn liberal woke Democrats, but these people are freaking worse. We got to get rid of them first, then we'll take out the Democrats later. And that's the important issue.
You both are making valid points, because some of these Republicans that we have seen lost, and we've got this going on in Texas that's coming up right now. We're seeing some of this that you're talking about also, Ken. So you both make good points on this one. And also, she's an Alaska native. The woman who won, she is an Alaskan native. She's very well liked. So that also helped. Biden laid out his Safer America plan while he was in Pennsylvania last week to ban assault weapons. There is a quiet Republican base who's also helping push this bill, because there are some Republicans who realize that, you know what, there are really no reasons for an 18-year-old kid to have these assault weapons that are out there and available to be purchased. And some of these, I've said it before on this show, it's a common sense moment. Some of these Republicans are getting into their common sense moments. Also in the Biden bombshells, Biden unveils a new nickname for Trump fans. He had somebody heckle him, and he said they were going to throw him out. He said, let him stay. Everyone's entitled to be an idiot. Me R-Squared. We talked about this kind of off air. I was kind of just a little upset that he called him an idiot, but then I thought about it, and I'm like, man, if Trump had said that, he would have been applauded by his base. So, it gets to this point where Biden, he has a right to an opinion, and, he called these people idiots. But another piece that R-Squared had talked about was this recent speech that some people are up in arms about with Joe Biden. Joe Biden did this speech the other night. I've already seen certain people like Skip Clay sharing pictures and putting the Nazi emblem on over the presidential seal in front of him, behind him, and they're already calling him Hitler and blah blah blah. These people, and I felt it was a great speech. I felt it was something that kind of needed to be said, because I've said this before. I feel like that these people are becoming to be a danger in society, and I've said it. If you're on social media and you're saying these crazy, outlandish things, guess what's going to happen in 6 years? You're going to go to renew your license to carry, and because they can check social media, if this bill passes, guess what? A gun store owner can look at your social media and be like, nope, denied. I'm not gonna sell him that. Or whoever's overlooking your renewal for your license to carry can say, nope, denied, because you've got these crazy beliefs on social media. Not just that, but some of these things, you want to take a hypocritical trip down to Disney World that you claim is woke, but you want to take your whole family, and you end up on a no-fly list because some of you people are becoming and looking like threats. And I'm going to let R-Squared, because he has a whole column on this whole topic on the Corridor that I feel everybody should check out. I've shared it on my page. So I'm going to let R-Squared get into this and talk about this extreme MAGA supporters, these people you see on Jordan Klepper who think that his daughter was a clone. When she testified against her dad, they said, oh, that was a clone. These people are, I'll let you get into it, R-Squared.
Yeah, so, two things. First, after Biden's speech was done, you had people like Kevin McCarthy and, some of the MAGA allies in Congress giving false commentary, right? They pretended to be outraged. They pretended that President Biden was saying something that he clearly wasn't saying. And so they called it shameful. So I was pretty happy with the title I came up with, saying the only thing shameful about Biden's speech was the fact that he had to give it, was the necessity of giving it. And what I mean by that is very simple. The majority of this country, regardless of political belief, liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican, independent, are decent people that have maybe a fundamental disagreement over policy priorities, but all of whom would still obviously support democracy, support the Constitution, care about the future of the country. We have different ways of getting there. And sometimes we fight like heck about it, but we recognize at the end of the day and at the end of the argument that we have the same ultimate goal, which is the betterment of our nation and the protection of our people. What President Biden was talking about, and he said this very clearly throughout the speech and in comments since, he was talking to the small piece of the MAGA world, not Republicans, not conservatives, the small element of MAGA extremists. And the MAGA extremists are people who do not support the Constitution of the United States. They do not support the rule of law. They do not support democracy. They have made this clear time and again. They are oftentimes led by these right-wing militia groups. These militia groups were never part of the Republican Party. So if you're saying that President Biden condemning this small group of MAGA extremists, and he kept saying MAGA extremists, if you found that to be offensive to you as a Republican, then you ought to think about either, are you actually a Republican, or are you a member of some supremacist or extremist militia? If you're in one of these extremist groups, then I don't care if you are offended, because you don't belong in this country. If you are a mainstream Republican, even a conservative Republican or a liberal Democrat, you do belong in this country. You're welcome here. You're welcome to participate in our political process, to run for office, to make your voice heard, to do all the things that our Constitution and our freedom allows for us to do, and in fact encourages us to do as the people, the citizenry. And that's the way it's supposed to be. And President Biden's theme throughout the speech, and I did watch it, and then I just happened to have the TV on a little bit later when he was in Wisconsin and gave some similar remarks on Labor Day where this came up, and he was very consistent in those remarks too, and he's been consistent throughout. He's talking about the extremist element that is trying to silence and usurp the Republican Party. Not all Republicans, not even most Republicans. As he says time and again, he has worked with these Republicans, the mainstream Republicans, even the conservative Republicans throughout his career, and respects them as friends and colleagues. And they have always worked with him in that same way. The MAGA extremists are a small percentage of the Republican Party. They are trying to intimidate. In fact, they have been intimidating and silencing the majority of the party where people are afraid to speak up. And so that was the purpose of the president's speech, was to say the vast majority of Americans who are good, decent people, liberal and conservative, Republican and Democrat, need to come together at this moment in history the way we did in 2020. We need to do it more in 2022 and 2024 until we get rid of the MAGA extremism. This is the same as talking about getting rid of an extremist group, of a supremacist group. If you would say that you would never want to see the neo-Nazi party in power in the United States, then you would agree with President Biden's speech. If you would say that you wouldn't want to see the Ku Klux Klan or the Aryan Nation having a majority in Congress, then you would agree with President Biden's speech. The only people who could possibly take offense at the theme of the president's speech were members of those groups, because that's who he was talking about. It's people who support that type of extremism, who don't support democracy, who don't support the Constitution, and don't support the rule of law. And if you fall into that category, I hope you are offended, and I hope you start making your reservations to winter in Moscow.
And before we get into this, I'm going to let Ken chime in on this one too, before we get into this next thing that was added. I actually added it.
What Rob said. That's all I got to say.
You got the
Hey,
next
you guys,
one.
again, if you haven't seen it, again, please head over to the Corridor and check out Rob's post. Like I said, he's got a great 1-2 punch this week for pieces that he has written. I shared one of them on my page, and what he's talking about people speaking up today's election day and across the country in some crucial areas, some crucial places. Texas is another one. Texas right now has an election going on for lieutenant governor. And there is a Democratic lieutenant governor candidate, Mike Collier, who's running against Dan Patrick. Now, Dan Patrick is a Republican, and down there in Texas, we have a ton. Well, let's just be honest here. We have 3 major Republicans who are throwing their support behind the Democrat, Mike Collier. Senator Kel Siegler, who is a Republican senator, he said he thinks Mike Collier is going to represent all Texans. He's going to have to do it because he will be presiding over a House that is going to be a majority. This is coming from a Republican. He also said that Dan Patrick is simply an extremist. That's coming right from a senator, Republican senator. Republican judge of Tarrant County, Glenn Whitley, he made a full endorsement of Collier running for lieutenant governor. And then just before we came on the air, there was another big name Republican in Texas who also threw his support behind Mike Collier. Ken, I'm going to let you talk about this because we're seeing this. Even though I'm kind of pissed that it took these guys on the day of election to come and show their true colors and get that so-called common sense finally. I feel like that they should have done this before while these guys were running, but hey, it's better late than never, right, Ken?
Better later than better sooner than later. Later than never. Never. I agree. We have been talking about this and asking the question: when is the mainstream Republican establishment going to come out and ties to Trump. And I think now we're seeing it. I'd like to think that they're doing it because love of country, love of the Constitution, and the fact that they've decided that these people have gone too far. I'd like to say that. And I think maybe that's part of the reason they're doing it. But, and this is the cynical me coming out saying, the main reason is they can read the same poll numbers that Rob has read, that you have read since the one. We've talked about this before. The vast majority of Americans don't support Trump and are abhorred by Trump and his cronies and the attempted violent overthrow of the US government and of our system. And they're saying they can't be associated with this guy because they'll drag them down. This is more damage control than anything else. And I suppose, to quote my grandfather, he's a poor man. He took his victories where he could get them. As long as they're coming in to condemn this and shut these people down, we should open our arms and say, welcome to the party, my friend. Where were you a year ago or 3 years ago or 4 years ago? That's not the issue. We've got an issue in front of us. And I think this is the beginning of a very tough road for the MAGA people. The tip of the iceberg. Choose your cliche. Mm-hmm. Because it only takes one person to sound the alarm. All right? The first person through the door always is to get battered. But then it comes the second, and then the third. Or maybe, for those of you who are the Guthrie fans, quote Alice's Restaurant, imagine 50 people a day walking in and singing in a bar of Alice's Restaurant and walking out. And we have a movement. I mean, that's what's happening right now. These MAGA people have gone too far. And I think they're endangering the mainline Republican base. And here's the other thing you need to look at. And this is what no one's talking about. And as much as I hate that big money in politics is poison, we can spend an entire show talking about campaign finance reform, and we will maybe close to the election. But a lot of the big money donors of the Republican Party are telling the Republican Party and telling the establishment, you want my money? You want my support? Get rid of these maggots, because we're not going to tolerate them.
And, we're seeing this, and I'm going to throw this one to Rob, we're seeing this in Texas. And the reason why this is big in Texas and we're heading into November, what I was hearing coming out of this whole issue with these Republicans throwing their support behind the Democrats, I heard people say, well, where does this leave Abbott and Cruz? And it looks like that these Texas voters might be getting sick of these two guys also.
Yeah.
Rob,
go ahead.
If
I may want to add one more thing. Texas is not nearly as red as it looks. It's not Georgia. It's not Alabama. It's not Mississippi.
One of you guys has said that, too. One of you guys was saying, keep an eye on Texas. It's not as red as you think.
Right. What was the spread for both Abbott and Cruz in their last elections? What I mean by that, how many percentage points did they win by?
I don't recall.
4%. 4%. If you read 538.com, which is an excellent website, I strongly recommend it, and I'm not connected to it anyway, so I'm getting a paid endorsement. The estimate was that if the Democrats can switch 20,000 votes in the state of Texas, they could run the table on every constitutional office, every House seat, and every Senate seat. Do you know how many 40,000 votes is in Texas?
That's not many.
That
ain't many. Yeah. Yep.
There are a couple of issues. I mean, Ken brought some very good points up about that. Cruz has never been very popular in Texas. He primaried Kay Bailey Hutchinson, and there are a lot of people who never forgave him for that. He's also incredibly smarmy, and people just don't like him because he's not a likable person. And then, of course, he ran from the crisis, was it last year? Right. And he's just never been good for Texas. And neither has Abbott, for that matter. He's been a disaster for Texas. And the more extreme, the more Cruz became a Trump surrogate, and the more Abbott tried to, out-Trump Trump to try to, be an extreme governor and then to take on Ron DeSantis because they both have aspirations outside of their states, it backfired because Texas electorally looks like a reliably red state, but demographically it's not. And one of the things that the Republicans, and this is where Greg Abbott had been very effective, was voter suppression. Texas is one of the worst states in the country for voter suppression. They know that if they let Democrats vote fairly, it would be very, very difficult for Republicans to maintain their hold on power. And so they have found ingenious ways, as they did in Georgia and other places, to suppress Democratic populations. And it's always the lower income communities that don't have the power, that don't have the voice to fight back, where they simply do things like closing polling places so they have to wait in line all day, and many of them will give up rather than do it, where they take away drop boxes so they have to travel distances, places where they get lost to drop off their ballot, where they limit early voting, where they do all of these things, and they do it directed at these communities to suppress the vote in those communities, knowing that the vote will overwhelmingly go to the Democratic candidates, or at least that's what they believe, and chances are that's true. And so that's what they do in Texas. And so this is why you have candidates like Beto O'Rourke that go to every corner of the state, show that he's not some crazy ass liberal, that he actually has the best interests of the Texas people in mind. And he's given, he's given Abbott a run for it. I don't know what's going to happen at the end of the day, because Texas has already, instituted voter suppression, where they're not going to let a lot of the Democrats even cast a ballot. And I know it sounds crazy, like how could that be true? It is. And you'll see the analysis. And it was true in Georgia. That's why Stacey Abrams lost the governor's race 4 years ago. And it's been true in other places where Republicans maintain their grip on power, by doing voter suppression issues and other, similar tactics. So, Ken is right. Texas could easily become a purple state. In fact, it probably already is a purple state, but they don't count the votes fairly.
We're gonna keep an eye on it. We're gonna watch, because like I said, there's a lot of stuff coming out of Texas, and it's good to see these things headed into November. Getting into the Ukraine invasion, I kept the story over from last week. A couple of great stories here. The Ukraine is making a big push for Kherson, which is located at the edge of the Black Sea. This was an area that Russia had taken over, and we talked about it on this show. But it looks like they've been making a big push. They've been pushing back. There is a nuclear facility that the Russians have taken over and taken claim to, that they're fighting, and they're close to maybe possibly getting that back into possession of Ukraine. But the funny story here, on top of this big push to Kherson, is the fact that Russian hackers created fake female profiles on social media, reached out to guys in Russian forces, and I could only imagine what was put into these private DM messages, to where a Russian soldier would tell a female person on the internet where they were. Obviously, they were expecting to get sexual favors. The Ukraine troops have shown up. They've taken over 2 places. One of them was a Russian outpost that they had set up, and they went there. They were able to destroy it because of these Russian hackers who created these fake female accounts. I can only imagine some Russian soldier sitting there thinking that he's getting a DM from the Ukrainian soccer player who's been all over the internet lately. The attractive Ukrainian volleyball player. I believe it's volleyball she plays. But some guy thinking that that's her that's going to show up on the field of battle to meet him. Social media has changed warfare as we know it, guys. I just want to talk about this because it's crazy that the Russians have lost 2 positions during this Ukrainian invasion because of something as simple as being catfished on the internet. This is insane, people. R Squared, you've been in the military, so your thoughts.
That's more amusing than it is effective. That may have helped a little bit, but trust me, it's the Ukrainian military effort that's leading to the liberation of the 2 cities, not this catfishing. That's just funny. And it shows what happens when you have poorly trained and disciplined conscripts that don't want to be there, that they're more susceptible to this type of thing. And it could happen to anybody, but it's happening to them. And so it's kind of funny. But, you mentioned Zaporizhia. That's the real story here right now, the nuclear plant. It's the largest one in Europe. It's one of the largest in the world. And the risk of a terrible accident is so high right now because, Russia continues to shell, and they don't care if they blow it up, because even though the damage will hurt Russia, I mean, it will blow back into Russia. They don't care at this point. And so, the UN inspectors have been there for a while. They're monitoring things, and the shelling continues. I mean, they just don't care, the Russians. So that, to me, is the big story going on right now. And it shows the absolute danger of a desperate Putin, of a desperate Russia, of Russian tactics in the first place. This would have happened 5 years ago. It's not about just this year and Putin this year. This is always the way they are. And so, these are war crimes. These are very dangerous war crimes. If they expose the reactor or some other critical damage like that, then you're talking about damage to people and the environment and food sources and things that will have a worldwide impact. It's very, very serious. And so this needs to be given top attention.
Ken, anything to add to that?
No, I totally agree with what Rob said.
And like I said, it was a funny story. I just thought it was hilarious and the sad thing is Putin has just announced last week that troops are getting low, and they're talking about forcing people to the front lines. How do you think that's going to go over with that type of tactic? You already got people out there who don't want to be there.
Yeah, the problem is a draft is never a good idea, but it may be your only choice sometimes. And so, we learned a valuable lesson during the Vietnam era about what an unpopular war can do and why a draft is ineffective. And our draft was not a very good time in our history as far as how it was executed and the privilege and everything else. And so military leaders across the board are against any kind of a draft in the United States, absent a pure necessary national emergency where we have no choice. In World War II, there was a draft, but you didn't need it because enough people were willing to go fight. And, so let's hope we don't have to draft. The way that we fight modern warfare, sometimes you don't need quite as many boots on the ground as you did in World War II to have everybody line up on a field. And so, we'll see what type of issues we have, but hopefully we don't need a draft. And you can see, pure examples of the negative of a draft is what's going on with the Russian army, how poorly trained and disciplined and supervised they are, and how ineffective they can be in certain battles. So that's one thing. The other thing that came out today, I don't know if you guys saw this, was Russia is buying military equipment from North Korea now. Did you see that? They're buying missiles. They're running low on their armaments, on their missiles and rockets and everything. They now announced today, they didn't announce it, but it came out today. U.S. intelligence uncovered, and the administration declassified it so the media could report on it. So the American people and the European people and even the Russian people would know how desperate Russia is, that they're now buying missiles and other equipment from North Korea. And that's a very dangerous development. That's a very dangerous development.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Definitely is. Wow, we'll have to keep an eye on that. People here, you're hearing it first on the booth. And we got to get in, and I got to thank everybody for purchasing hats and things of that sort. But I got to get into this. We're at 8:24, and it is time to get into NFL back Thursday night. Pull my coat here. Get into the discussion. NFL is back. And before we get into this discussion, we break it down. I don't think there's anybody who can say that they know who is going to be at the Super Bowl this year. This year's free agency was the most craziest free agency that we've ever seen in the history of NFL free agency and draft. First of all, we had a draft like we've never seen before. This last draft we just had was 90% defensive players this year. We didn't have a wide receiver picked until almost the second round of the draft. So we had a lot of moves. You had Russell Wilson. He left the Seahawks. He's with the Broncos now. Matt Ryan went from the Falcons to the Colts. Wide receiver Devontae Adams left the Packers, went down to the Raiders. Tyreek Hill left the Chiefs. He's now with the Dolphins. A.J. Brown is now an Eagle. Amari Cooper, wide receiver, he's now a Brown. Khalil Mack is with the Chargers. Von Miller is now in the AFC East with the Bills. Chandler Jones, Cardinals, went to the Raiders. And we've had head coaches change. We've had Josh McDaniels become a head coach of the Raiders. We've got guys all over the place making moves, teams making all types of things. I don't know about you guys, but I am excited for this season to kick off on Thursday night. I know you guys have got to be pretty ecstatic, right? Ken usually is ready to go. He's just nodding his head.
I'm always excited when football season starts. I miss it. I love it, and I'm so ready for it.
Here's the thing. The NFL loves to do this to me every year. They love to get me psyched up, and then they love to crush me like I was Alabama playing Missoula State without their first team. Okay?
And we've got a lot of moves.
Don't get me started. It's gonna be. I'm really excited about this season. I really am. But God damn it, don't frack with me, NFL, because I'm not in the mood for it. Not this year. It's the first year I'm getting back. We're gonna have fans in the stands. I was able to score my Patriots tickets for the Christmas Day game, or as my friends like to call it, the Jew game. I'm really excited. Gonna see the Patriots hosting the Bengals on Christmas Eve day. So excited. Don't screw it up, NFL, please. No wheel of discipline. No anthem crisis. Keep it on the field. Hopefully no one will get accused of rape or manslaughter or punching a girlfriend in the elevator. Please. That's all I'm asking for.
We unfortunately have some issues here because Deshaun Watson, as you guys know, he was suspended for the first 6 games. The NFL has now appealed that, so they're trying to get him gone for 10 games or maybe 12 games. Deshaun Watson has been down there with the Cleveland Browns. Baker Mayfield is now a Panther. Carson Wentz is with the Commanders. Marcus Mariota is with the Falcons. Mitch Trubisky is with the Steelers, and Teddy Bridgewater is down there with the Dolphins. And as you guys can see here, we're going to start out with, we're going to talk about the NFC North. I think this is going to be kind of the easiest one to break down, the NFC North, which is the Chicago Bears, the Detroit Lions, the Green Bay Packers, and Minnesota Vikings. I think Aaron Rodgers is your standout quarterback in the NFC North. I think Green Bay is going to be there right to the very end. I also think they're probably going to take the title this year. Chicago still having coaching issues, still having quarterback issues down there. Detroit Lions were crying all year last year because they got rid of their quarterback. He went to the Rams and gets a Super Bowl his first time out. In Minnesota, they just haven't been able to get it right. So I'm just going to look at the Green Bay Packers. I think it's going to be the same old for the NFC North. I think this is Aaron Rodgers' time to get that last one before he needs to leave. But he doesn't have Devontae Adams, but I still think he's going to get it done. I'm going to go to R-squared on the NFC North.
Yeah, I think the NFC North might be the most boring of the divisions this year. I think you're right. Green Bay is probably gonna walk with it. I think the Vikings might have a decent season, but Green Bay just doesn't have a challenge in that division, and they're a strong enough team that they're going to be around in playoff time.
I'm actually going to write these down so I'll be able to post them. Ken?
Okay, a couple of things. I think the NFC North has a major issue, and that is they all suck. Okay? I think Green Bay is one of the most overrated teams in the history of football. Aaron Rodgers, no question, first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback. But the boy's getting old, okay? He's getting old. Who does he have to throw to? Who is your not just competent receiver? He's got competent receivers, no question. But who has got his outstanding receiver? Who?
He had Devontae Adams, but he doesn't have him no more. So
I know. who out there? And here's the other thing and this I harp on this all the time and you're gonna hear me say this through the entire show: offensive line. Quarterbacks win game, offensive lines win championships. And that offensive line's got enough holes in it, you call it Swiss cheese. I agree. Detroit, they're the proverbial basement dwellers. I would love for Detroit to actually surprise everybody and be competitive this year. I really would. My heart bleeds for Detroit, but they suck too. Chicago, the only thing worse than Chicago is their stadium. But I think Minnesota is going to be your sleeper. There's always one team every year that comes out of no place and surprises everybody. I think this year it's Minnesota.
You think it's going to be Minnesota this year?
Yeah.
All right.
I think they've been
Chicago.
By everybody.
The big news out of Chicago is that they did secure a parcel of land, and it looks like Chicago's Soldier Field will be getting a new home. And we're going to have to keep an eye on that because the Patriots unveiled their new stuff that's coming for our stadium, and our stadium is going to be setting the tone once again as they did 20 years ago. So I'm pretty excited for that. Let's move on to the NFC South discussion. NFC South, and I'm going to write our names down here, and then get Ken, and we got Rob. NFC South is the Falcons, Panthers, New Orleans Saints, and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Another, as Rob said, another Snorefest division. Until he's knocked from the King of the Hill, I got to go with Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. The problem with Tom Brady and the Buccaneers in the NFC South is that, one, they don't have Bruce Arians. It's a whole new coaching staff down there. Let's see what Todd Bowles can do with Tom Brady. That's the rumor as to why Tom Brady supposedly came back. I think there was more issues as to why. But here's the thing. Tom Brady's marriage isn't looking too good. We've been hearing the divorce rumors for the last 3 to 5 years, but the word out of the home front is, and he was on a podcast just yesterday, and he said she's not happy. For those who watch that Super Bowl, she mouthed to him, "Are you done?" when he won with Tampa Bay. Now, for me, I feel him coming back this season, Tom Brady, is selfish, and I think it's him running away from wanting to become part of the real life world. You have a whole contract to go up in the booth and be a commentator. You're going to make more being on TV than you did in your whole career as a football player, number one. Number two, there's nothing left for you to achieve. When he went to Tampa Bay and he won a Super Bowl, he did what nobody else could do, and that was win 2 Super Bowls win 1 Super Bowl in each of the conferences. He's broken every record. Coming back this year, there's nothing really for him to achieve or to put out there. I think it was a waste of time. I think he should have just retired and set off into the sunset. I think this was useless for him to come back. I think he came back because of this whole talk about the Miami and now this whole Raiders story of all this tampering that was going on. The Saints, all new coaching staff down there, new quarterback down there. Carolina Panthers got Baker Mayfield. Falcons, I think it's still Tampa Bay, but keep an eye on Tom Brady's personal issues in life because that's what's going to be the deciding factor for Tampa Bay. If he decides to retire to save his marriage partway through this season, it's going to open up the NFC South. But for right now, I'm going with Tampa Bay. Ken?
It's a garbage division. Take Tampa Bay out there, and the Brockton Boxers are going to be in first place. There's no question it's going to be Tampa Bay. Atlanta Falcons, all I got to say is 28-3. They've never recovered. The Panthers, my God, blow up the entire team and start again. And don't get me started on the Saints. So, yeah, of course it's going to be Tampa Bay, but it's going to be anybody in that division. The Jets could win that division if they got transferred there.
Squid?
Yeah, look, it's very clear that the other 3 teams in that division are all in rebuilding mode. The Panthers have been doing it for a couple of years, so they just haven't gotten it right. They've made too many changes. Atlanta, obviously, new quarterback, some new personnel. I think Atlanta could give people a run for it, but I don't think they're strong enough to make a season-long run to the Super Bowl. The Saints, they've got some great talent on that team. They've never figured out how to replace Drew Brees, who was one of the all-time greats, of course. But they've got a new coaching staff in there. Kamara probably isn't going to stay healthy. So, the only thing that the Saints did well last year was they beat the snot out of Tom Brady during both regular season games. Those are two of my favorite regular season games last year, watching the Saints destroy Brady and shove his face in the dirt. That was just great. But of course, the Tampa Bay beat them in the playoffs when it counted, so they got their revenge. I just don't think anybody can compete with Tampa as far as having depth. So it's going to be Tampa in a cakewalk in that division.
So we're all going with Tampa on that one. Let's get into the NFC East, which is going to be a little bit competitive, people. Amari Cooper is gone from Dallas. CeeDee Lamb is injured. Dallas always comes out fast, and then they flop like God knows what. Giants, I haven't heard much news out of the Giants this year, but if their problem has always been injuries. The Giants look good. The Giants always look like they're going to make a run, and then all of a sudden they get injuries. If they can stay healthy this year, I can see the Giants making a run, but I think this year it's going to be the Eagles. The Eagles made some great offseason moves. They had some late trades come down the pipe. I'm liking the Eagles in the NFC East this year. Squid, since your Giants are here.
Yeah, look, obviously I wish I could say more about the Giants. The Giants will be slightly improved from last year. They did a lot in the offseason. They brought in some talent. I like the new coaching staff better. But you can't turn it around. I mean, miracles can happen, but they're not going to be a Super Bowl team this year. I think they'll win. I think they'll win a few more games than they did last year. But like you pointed out, the team is cursed with this injury problem. And part of that is the turf in the stadium. And Philadelphia had this problem years ago, and where, nobody wanted to play there, and everybody was getting hurt in Philadelphia. And they finally, after years of this, replaced the turf. And I think they need to figure that out in Giant Stadium, in MetLife Stadium, because I think that's the common denominator with a lot of these injuries. And there are other teams who go in there that are nervous about playing because they feel the same way. So you wonder what's wrong with that. And that leads to the second problem with the Giants, is that they have an internal problem. There's an internal problem. There's a malaise in there that makes the team underperform, and they've got to figure it out. They can't keep changing coaching staffs. That's clearly not what the issue is. And so, we know that they've improved the O-line. We know that they have a lot of talent in there. Can Barkley stay healthy? Is Jones really able to compete? I don't know. Too many questions. So I can't be hopeful about the Giants. I would like to watch them this year. I hope they win more games, but they're not going to be a playoff team. The Commanders, they're a joke. They're not going to be a playoff team. They may pull off a couple of upsets and be a spoiler, but they're not going to be a playoff team. So it comes down to Dallas and Philly. Dallas, I don't know what the hell Jerry Jones smokes sometimes, but he always manages to find some secret weapons somewhere, and Dallas, makes a run, maybe because they can pound the rest of their division. I do think it might be Philly's year, though. I think this could be an Eagles year. But again, it's going to come down to Philly and Dallas. It's going to come down to who stays healthy between the two, and who has that midseason letdown when they shouldn't. But if I have to pick, I'm going to say Philly.
Dan Diesel.
Okay. Have you guys ever heard the theory of large numbers? Theory of large numbers says if you repeat something often enough, you can predict the outcome, because things are going to have to, there's only so many possible outcomes. And I'm applying the theory of large numbers to this year's Giants. They can't have another injury-riddled season. It violates the theory of large numbers. They're due. They've gone through all the jokers in the pack. They've gone through all the low card numbers. The only thing left are face cards and aces. This is making a blackjack term. I like the Giants. They made a couple of good moves in the offseason. They did the one thing I've been bitching and moaning about them for years. They got an O-line. It actually looks like an O-line that belongs in the professional sports. The receiving core, not great, but it's serviceable. Their running core, again, serviceable, but I really like their secondary. Their secondary is going to be a shutdown. We're a pass happy league these days, and I think that's going to hurt a lot of people. So look at the Giants. Dallas, one Super Bowl, one playoff victory in 20 years, most overrated team in the goddamn universe. They quote somebody else, they always win the offseason. I agree. Bottom dwellers, they're going to screw up big time. The Washington Commanders, oh my God. I don't know what they did to be cursed with Dan Snyder. And maybe I think the only way they're going to win is that they take Dan Snyder out and throw him in the Potomac with some cement galoshes around his ankles. Okay? The Eagles. I know, Sister One, your boy's a big Eagles fan. They're this year's wild card. Okay? It depends who shows up. If the Eagles show up, playoff bound, maybe a conference championship. I doubt Super Bowl, but they could. If whatever team that isn't the Eagles shows up like they did last year, they're gonna be bottom dwellers. So I am looking at the Giants, but I think it's gonna be decided in the last game of the year about who goes into the playoffs, either the Giants or Philadelphia. I'm not talking about wild card. I'm talking about divisional win. But I would not be at all surprised to see one team taking the conference, one take the division, and one qualifying as a wild card.
I hope you're right.
Okay. So you're looking at, so we're going to put him down as the Giants.
Yeah.
And we got Joe Judge here. We got Joe Judge here in New England now, who's working out. The rumor is that him and Belichick were kind of battling back and forth. They had to feel each other out. Part of the reason is because Joe Judge was a head coach, and then he came here and he's an assistant. We've got this whole beef now because Belichick doesn't want to name who the offensive coordinator is going to be. He feels like they don't need to have their titles right yet. Joe Judge has been going back and forth with the kid with the beard, the defensive coordinator that was here for a little while, went down to Detroit, Matt Patricia. The word out of Foxborough is that Joe Judge isn't getting along with him, but we'll talk about that when we get into the AFC East. We're going to get into the NFC West. And with the NFC West, we've got the Arizona Cardinals, they were under the radar last year. They surprised a lot of people, but they've been quietly building. I think we've talked about these guys quite a bit on this show. The Seahawks, they lost Russell Wilson. They're in rebuilding for me. San Francisco 49ers, they have no idea what they're trying to do out there. They had a chance to get rid of Garoppolo. They didn't do it. Now they've restructured his contract, and they're bringing Garoppolo back into the fold. They have no idea. So I think this season, the NFC West is going to come down to the Rams. Will they repeat, or will it be the Cardinals to knock them from the throne? I think the Rams are still stacked. I like the Rams again this year, but I think the Cardinals are going to be nipping at their heels. Ken?
Break out the dartboard and the darts and throw some darts to pick who it is. I have no idea what this entire division. I mean, for God's sakes, I might as well be looking at trying to read Urdu or Egyptian hieroglyphics. San Francisco, I like Jimmy G, always have, but he's injury prone. I think he's had all potential, no follow through. But then again, they find ways to win. I mean, it's like a guy who fights fires with a flamethrower. I can't explain how he does it, but he does it. Arizona, another team that was really UTR. I agree. Under the radar, this could be their breakout year. People ignore them. They're gonna get stomped and stomped hard. But do they have to go through the entire season? I don't know. And what about injuries? They got pretty lucky last year with no injuries. Are they due? Seattle, 12th man, whole 9 yards. Again, another team who's going to show up week to week. If Seattle shows up, you could be looking at a playoff contender. If whatever garbage shows up, forget it. LA Rams, you got the Super Bowl curse. A lot of teams have the Super Bowl curse. They win the Super Bowl and they tank the next year for whatever reason. So God only knows. I'm going with Arizona for the division only because I believe in the Super Bowl curse. And I don't think anybody else in that division could hold the torch to them.
Rob?
Yeah, this is one where I disagree with Ken. I think the Rams are a solid team. I agree with you about the curse that sometimes teams have a big letdown after their Super Bowl win, but I think they're a solid, well-coached team. And if I look at their competition in the division, I think the Rams are going to repeat at least as the division winners. I'm not saying they're going to win a second Super Bowl, but I think they win their division again. My second place team out west, I think, is going to be the 49ers, not the Cardinals. The Cardinals could have a great season. They could wind up going all the way this year, but last year they choked. And I think they're missing a few things. And yes, they have to stay healthy, as you pointed out. So I think Arizona comes in third place out there. Seattle, forget them. They're rebuilding. I think Denver gave too much for Russell Wilson. He's a great quarterback, but I think they gave up too much for him. But that gives Seattle some room to make some moves. I think they've got their work cut out for them this year. I don't think they're going to be fun to watch, and I don't think they're going to be a factor in the race. So to me, I think the Rams have the inside track on winning the division, and they're going to be around playoff time. They may make the Super Bowl again. I don't know. I have to, as I look at who else might make the Super Bowl, I wouldn't count the Rams out. But
so you like the Rams for that NFC West?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And the Niners is a wild card.
Niners is a wild card. All right. AFC North, which usually is the blood in the water division. This is a knockdown, drag down. But here's the thing. There's been a lot of moves. A lot of people switched around. Ben Roethlisberger retired. But Mike Tomlin always seems to get it done year after year after year. Mike Tomlin always seems to get it done, stays above 500, yet they can never make that push that they need. Cleveland Browns, you got Joe Burrow over there. You got this Deshaun Watson. I don't think the Browns do anything this year. I think this year it's the Bengals. I think you're going to see the Bengals take this whole thing all over again. I don't think Lamar Jackson has the weapons or what it takes again this year. I'm going with the Bengals, guys. AFC North. Hot Squid?
This one is a tough one for me. I read some interesting stuff about the Ravens. The Ravens had a decent season last year, and a lot of people think they're going to win the AFC North this year, that it's going to be Baltimore's year to make a playoff run, a Super Bowl run. I'm not convinced of that. I think Cincinnati got ever so close last year. I think they're hungry. I think they're talented. And I think that it's going to be Cincinnati's division. And I would say that they have a harder schedule this year, but I'm gonna put my pick on the Bengals. But I think the Ravens are going to be a factor this year. I think both of those teams make the playoffs for sure. It's a question of in what order and whether that makes a difference in who advances.
And Diesel, because I know you love the AFC North. You love these matchups.
I love this. I'm a Patriots fan, but God darn, do I love the AFC North. Talk about blood ball. Okay, Pittsburgh Steelers. Big Ben, the leader of men, is retiring. Should retire 3 years ago, in my humble opinion. I don't know who they had to replace him, if they got anybody. Mike Tomlin, great coach, but I think this can be a rebuilding year, so I don't think they're going to make it. Cleveland, the factory of sadness. Would love for Cleveland fans to shove this prediction in my face come December and have them, but no, it's not this year. The Bungles, you guys are crazy. Oh, come on. Do you remember when they won their first playoff game last year? The joke was this was the first time anyone texted about a playoff win of the Bengals because the last time they won a playoff game, texting hadn't been invented yet. No. They're going to be a good team, and they cannot be ignored. Because if you ignore them or you look past them, they're going to stomp you ugly. But I'm going with my Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore is a tough city. They got blood in the water. They have been Pittsburgh's female dog for years. They're going to come out this year, and they're looking to prove something and looking to cause a lot of pain in the AFC North, in the AFC. So look at Baltimore.
All right, so Ken's got Baltimore in that one. Let's get into the AFC. Ooh, what did I just do there? AFC North. All right, let's get into AFC East. Where's my South? Okay, so we got the East coming up now. It's going out of order, but we'll take it.
Want to do the East first or South?
We'll go to the AFC South and then come back to the East. AFC South: Houston Texans, Indianapolis Colts, Jacksonville Jaguars, Tennessee Titans. Titans have always been this Man, it's always been the Titans to come out of there. I don't think so. I think the under the radar, I think I'm liking the Colts with that running game from Jonathan Taylor. I think the Colts squeak out the AFC South title this year. And I think they're going to do it's not going to be easy, but that's who I'm going with. I'm going with the Colts. Ken?
The Colts are the glue factory. I'm sorry, Andrew Luck is gone. They got nobody. They're gonna be mediocre. They're gonna be a 500 team, but they're not going anyplace. Jacksonville plays. The Jacksonville days are gone. They're doing nothing. Tennessee Titans, one yard short. That's gonna be the theme of their season. I'm going with the Texans. I think the Texans are going to surprise a lot of people this year. They've got a solid defense. They got a great secondary. Their offense needs a lot of work, but I think their defense is going to carry them this year. So I'm going with the Texans, only because the AFC South is such a garbage weak division.
Squid?
Yeah, the AFC South is going to be the division that nobody wants to win. And it was kind of like that last year when there was some upsets at the end of the season about what was supposed to happen. So you can't really count out anybody except Jacksonville because they're terrible. And Trevor Lawrence is not an NFL quarterback. So they're going to have to figure the future down there. I guess you give them another chance to see. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I just don't see Jacksonville being competitive. So it comes down to, who's going to prevail there. Houston does have some talent. I just think they have too many problems. They're not going to be around playoff time. So that leaves me to the Titans and the Colts, which it came down to last year. The Titans, they just seem like they don't have it put together. I'm going to go with the Colts. I think it's going to be the weakest record that wins a division in all of football, but it's going to be the Colts.
All right. Now we're going to go over to the AFC East. Buffalo Bills, Dolphins, Patriots, and Jets. Buffalo Bills, like they said, they brought Von Miller. They brought Von Miller over to that defense. That's going to be tough for the Patriots this year. But the Patriots also have the fastest wide receiver. Unfortunately, he's hurt, so he's not playing. And they also have the fastest running back from the draft. A lot of people are expecting Mac Jones to have a second-year flop. I don't think so. I think that this AFC East is still going to come down to the Buffalo Bills and the New England Patriots this year. The Dolphins have this whole Brian Flores gate going on down there. I don't see anything coming out of there. The Jets have the same injury problems that the Giants have because they play in the same stadium, and they have the same exact injury issues going on down there with the Jets. I think it's between Buffalo and the Patriots, but I think with Von Miller, I think the Bills, I hate to say this, but I think the Bills take the AFC East again. Squid?
Obviously you never count the Patriots out because you've got Belichick and you've got a team that really is very well managed and that comes together. So you never count the Patriots out, but I don't think they're going to win the division. It could happen because you never count them out, but I just don't think it's going to. I would go with Buffalo this year because I think they have the deepest team, just like they proved last year. One thing about the Dolphins, and of course I get Dolphins news down here, they've made a lot of moves. Now, I don't know that Tua Tagovailoa is a top-tier quarterback. And so giving him Tyreek Hill, first of all, they gave up way too much for Tyreek Hill. But, bringing him in, I just don't know. They have too many running backs. It's going to be confusing. Their defense is pretty good. We're going to have to see about the O-line. They may have the Giants problem with an O-line here in Miami, the old Giants problem where you don't have one. So it'll be interesting. If they can protect Tua and he gets in sync, then I think the Dolphins can be very, very competitive. Not a Super Bowl year for sure, but they might fight the Patriots for second place behind Buffalo. So it'll be interesting to see. I think that's going to be a fun division to watch. It always is, but I think it will be this year.
Yeah. Ken?
It gives me a great division to watch this year, for the exception of the Jets. All I got to say is butt fumble. That's what they're going to do with their entire season. Everybody else is a wild card. Let's go with Miami. I think they always seem to be on the cusp of greatness. They're one or two moves away from having a great season. They've been doing this for 15 years. And part of me wants them just to have the breakthrough season only because their fans deserve it. But they're going to be a team to watch. I don't think they'll make the playoffs this year, but I think if they continue going the way they are next year, they're going to be the team to watch. New England, my heart belongs to New England. I really want them to win the division, but not their year. Wild card, definitely. But you got a very young quarterback. You got an O-line that's being rebuilt. You got a good, strong secondary. Definitely going to be a wild card. They're going to cause a lot of problems for a lot of people, but not their year. Bills, man, my God. This is their year. If they can't put it together this year, forget about it. They're done. Stick a fork in them. They are done. They had a terrific run last year. They humiliated the Patriots in the playoffs. I think one comment is they dragged the Patriots down 90, doing 90, and that's the truth. I think that they got to do better clock management. If they hadn't screwed up 13 seconds in the game against the games against the Chiefs, they would have been going to the Super Bowl against the Rams. Okay, but I think that's a learning experience. Bill Belichick, they're on to this year. Go with the Bills, no question about it. They're an AFC East lock for the division.
And I saved this one for last on purpose because this right here is the talk of the league. Nobody knows what's coming out of here. Between these, you can pretty much... The AFC West is going to be a dogfight. This is going to come right down to the wire. The Chargers can put up points. They've got a great quarterback there. They've made some great additions. Josh McDaniels is down there with the Raiders. He's pulled some great players over there for the Vegas Raiders. Kansas City Chiefs, you can't knock Patrick Mahomes out. They're going to be right there. And the Denver Broncos, who've been real quiet, have made some real silent moves in the offseason. The AFC West is going to be the toughest division to watch. This could be anybody's division. I think Josh McDaniels is going to surprise everybody. I think the Raiders are going to be your wild card in that AFC West. And I also think that this year is the Chargers' year for the AFC West. I think this is it for them. I think they're fast. That team is fast. I'm going with the Chargers this year. Ken?
The AFC West is Thunderdome. Four teams enter, one team comes out. Okay? It's going to be a bloodbath. This is what the AFC North used to be back in the day. Nobody's getting out of here with all their parts in play. Let's talk about, I'll go from bottom to the top. LA Chargers. Screw you, Spanos. You're a piece of garbage. But this is the team. This is the 90-pound weakling that got sand kicked in their face, who went out, buffed up, came back, and started kicking some tail. So look at the Chargers. The Chiefs. One of the most overrated teams in the NFL. I think Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback, but he's not a great leader. They're going to go full read this year and continue the downward spiral. So, Denver Broncos. I love you guys. I really do. I love John Elway. My father lives in Denver. I've been to Mile High Stadium, or now they call it Invesco Field, or whatever it is. It's a great stadium. The fans out there are great. I don't know what they've done to be cursed with the team. Well, they're definitely going to wild card slot, but they're not going to take the division. The return of Al Davis, okay? Al Davis's ghost has come and possessed the Raiders, okay? The Silver and Black Brigade, just win, baby. It's going to be ugly in that division. I mean, ugly with a capital U. I'm talking blood and teeth and body parts on the floor, but I think the Raiders are going to take it in the last game of the season. I think it's going to come down to the last game of the season, decide who's going to clinch that division. I think it's going to be the Raiders only because they're the biggest, baddest dog in the pound. This is like pit bull time. This is like putting a couple of pit bulls in the ring or cockfighting. It ain't going to be pretty. Don't expect their victories to be pretty. It's going to be all old-fashioned. I'm looking 1970s John Madden, Ghost of the Post, Raiders football.
Squid?
I agree with you guys that this is going to be the division to watch. And I agree. I think, Sinister One, you said this. Any of these 4 teams could make the playoffs. Any of these 4 teams can win the division, and another one's definitely going to win a wild card. You got at least 2 teams coming out of the West in the postseason. I think it's going to come down to, whether somebody has a blown play or an unfortunate injury late in the season to kind of see who comes out ahead, because that's how close it's going to be. If I have to pick, which I do, I think it's going to be Chargers and Chiefs. The 2 teams going to make the postseason out of that, but it would not surprise me to see Denver or the Raiders. It could be any combination. It really can. But since we want to go on the record, I think the Chargers are, they got stomped on last year, and I think they came back a little bit more hungry. Yes, Kansas City has its problems, but they're a very talented team, and I'm not going to count them out. So I think it's going to be those 2, but I could be wrong. It could be the other 2.
It is. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a dogfight. I think every AFC, I think they're going to benefit from huge ratings. I think everybody in the NFL knows what's at stake here for this AFC West. I think the ratings are going to be through the roof for them this year for all of their matchups and their games, and it's going to be great stuff. Guys, it's 9:00. I'm going to put these note these down for us for the season and see how the season unfolds, and then we'll be back on the first of the month to talk about stuff. I'm gonna let you guys go around the horn and say your goodbyes here, and then I'm gonna get into this trailer to take us home, and then SpongeBob will take us home after the trailer. But Ken Diesel, I'm gonna let you say your goodbyes.
Okay, I want to thank all of our listeners and viewers, all 12 of you. Happy Labor Day, belated Labor Day. For those of you like myself and Rob who are celebrating Rosh Hashanah, have a happy and sweet New Year and an easy fast. And for everybody else, I'll see you in October.
Squid.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. Long show tonight, especially because we got to do the NFL preseason kickoff there. A lot of good stuff. Just like I always say, stay informed, stay involved. See you next time.
Definitely. And what we're going to do is we're going to be back here. I'll be back here next week with some guests from Sugar the Play, which is in Cleveland, Ohio. Your boy's going to be flying out to Cleveland. Actually, I'm driving out to Cleveland, Ohio to MC this play. But what I want to do here is I want to set you up with this trailer from Disney Plus for Andor, Star Wars, 12 episodes. 3 of those are going to be on the first night. The premise of this Andor show is when the Empire finally makes its move and the revolution, the rebellion begins. This whole series is based on the start of the rebellion. So here's the trailer for Andor, and then after this, SpongeBob, you're going to do me a favor and take us home. Here we go.
To steal from the Empire? To just walk in like you belong? They're so proud of themselves. So fat and satisfied. They can't imagine that someone like me would ever get inside their house.
Cassian Andor. The Empire is choking us so slowly. We're starting not to notice. What I'm asking is this. Wouldn't you rather give it all to something real? I need all the heroes I can get.
For the greater good.
Call it what you will.
Let's call it war.
There's fermenting out there, son. Pockets of fermenting.
You're in my net. Are you a fish? Or are you a thief? You're slipping.
I'm not slipping. I've just been hiding for too long.
As long as everyone thinks I'm an irritation, there's a good chance they'll miss what I'm really doing.
What are you really doing?
This is what revolution looks like.
tired of losing.
See you next Tuesday.
Thank you for listening to The Booth on Hoobazoo and HatcherRadio.com. Please follow the Facebook page and subscribe to the podcast at Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. The Booth is a Sinister One production hosted by Sinister One.
I've got to start hanging out with friends that are a little more intelligent and understand politics and stuff. It's just that I'm up on this level up here, and all my friends are down here. Me, nah. You guys, nah. Maybe a little more down in here. Screw you guys, I'm going home.
I smoke, I drink, I do my thing. These bitches hating, so you know I got to make it plain. Don't do cocaine with your chick, my main. We stick together, true forever, yeah, you know we bang. I miss those days, which was easy. If only I make it, bitch, don't repeat. Now that I done upgraded, I've been upstate, but y'all think I'm playing. And I got a hit now for these weak assholes who think I ain't slaying. Try me, and I'll probably end up laughing, cause I never back down. I'm that chick with a clean ass whip, I don't need that shit, I got my own now. I get hurt, I get tired of fussing, fighting, guess I gotta crack down. Don't mess with me, cause on everything, I'ma have to bring the whole city out.
WHOOBAZOO, that's Hoobazoo.com.
Enter website, enter website, enter website, enter website.